I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Southwest Magazine. I'm joined today by the leader of the New Brunswick Liberal Party, Susan Holt. Thank you for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Last time you were here, it was when you were running to be leader, and at that time you were traveling all around the province, but it's something you really haven't stopped doing now that you are the leader. Can you tell me a lot about what you're hearing from particularly rural New Brunswickers? I know recently you were in Campobello, but what are they telling you are their concerns and also hopes for New Brunswick right now?
Oh, that's a great question, Vicki. Thank you. I've been loving traveling around to every corner of New Brunswick, and it was really fun during the leadership race, but it's even more interesting now because the themes are the same. People everywhere are feeling left out. They're feeling really disconnected from decisions that are being made, but their concerns are pretty universal. Like everybody everywhere is concerned about healthcare. And sometimes that feels like they're concerned about access to healthcare facilities in their community, whether their closest ER is going to stay open or not, whether they're going to have the healthcare professionals in their community to serve them, whether the ambulance is going to show up or how far away is it to take them if they're in an emergency situation. So healthcare continues to be the thing that we hear the most, and that's whether rural or urban. Really, the flavor is just different in the rural areas where, you know, folks want community-based care, right? They don't want to have to wait 2 hours for an ambulance to come from somewhere really far away, right? We've been hearing a lot of those stories about coverage and the resources that are being placed in rural areas. The other piece we hear a lot about is that's universal as well, I'd say, is cost of living. People are finding life really expensive, and when you go to the grocery store and a couple bags of groceries is costing you a couple $100, that's making life really tough for a lot of people, and there doesn't seem to be a sense of it getting better, right? There's a sense that it might actually get worse, right? We're going to see a recession coming. The price at the pump is not really, like, it's kind of come up and down, but it's still really expensive for people in rural life who spend a ton of time in their truck or car getting from place to place for work or for childcare or for whatever it is that they're doing in their life. So I'd say those are the main two, is healthcare and cost of living. If I think about, you know, Campobello specifically or some other particularly small places, it's about connectivity, right? How can they connect to the rest of the province, either through transportation infrastructure, roads, ferries, or through things like the internet? Like, can I get reliable high-speed internet in my corner of this province? Because if I can connect to digital healthcare services, or if I can connect through a road or ferry or other things to my province, then I can continue to enjoy rural life and have the space and the ATV and go for a ride in the back of, you know, the property or the community, because I know that I'm connected in a couple different ways to the services that I need. So.
I'm sure this issue of the Campobello Ferry came up when you were on Campobello. Is that something that residents talk to you about? Yeah,
that was actually the reason that I went. So they have a committee, a year-round ferry committee, that reached out and invited me to come and meet with them. And so I thought that's a great reason to go, and then I could connect more things with the beautiful people down there. Helped me have an amazing day. We couldn't take the ferry over because it wasn't running, so we drove through the US and brought our passports, and thankfully they let us in. Although you shouldn't have to be sitting at a border hoping that you might get let into a country to try and get basic services, and that point was made pretty clear to me. We got over there and got to see some of the local businesses, meet with someone from the school, meet with someone running the pharmacy, talking to the folks who are on the committee about the need for a reliable permanent connection to their country and their province, and that the current ferry, that infrastructure, isn't working in a way that is, they're doing the best they can, and the community was very clear to not put it on the operator. It's that it's the infrastructure. We don't have the right size ferry or even bridge or something that would give them permanent access to New Brunswick so that you don't have to have a passport and hope you can get into the US for some simple things. There was a lot of great stories there, actually, about like inequity, about the kids at the school who aren't doing field trips and don't have sports tournaments and don't have the same access to people coming to present rich and valuable information because they can't get access to Campobello. So some of that made me pretty sad, thinking that, you know, a kid in a New Brunswick school is not getting the same experience or the access to the same quality of education because of an infrastructure issue. So it's a beautiful place, even in the winter. And so I think their plight, that feeling of being forgotten, being told you're not important, you're only 800 people, why would we do something for such a small community? I think there's a lot of folks in rural areas that feel that.
And when you look at a place like Campobello, yes, it's 800 people, but I know you've mentioned tourism as something that we could grow in this province. A place like Campobello with Roosevelt Park, maybe a ferry investment could invigorate tourism. Is that a feeling you got there as well?
Well, there was actually somebody there who had worked at Roosevelt Park, and since I posted the photo about going to visit, I heard from a whole bunch of people who have either been there, are fascinated by the Roosevelts, love the beauty of the island, the history, and it actually played like the Roosevelts certainly, but some of the things that were done and decisions made on Campobello make up a really interesting part of our history. I think tourism is an under-realized opportunity in New Brunswick. And we're seeing it, right? People are moving here because we have beautiful rural life. We have this gorgeous province with lots of space. And I think we could make more of it, and that certainly applies to Campobello, that extends past summer seasons and into falls and springs and even into the winter, where the history doesn't change just because there's snow on the ground. But if you don't have the infrastructure to get there, then we can't realize the benefits that I think tourism has to offer.
Now, you mentioned, I think even last time you were here as well, infrastructure and something like high-speed internet, and you saying that a lot of people might consider moving to New Brunswick and growing our population even more if that was something that was more accessible in rural areas. What do you think needs to change to make that a reality?
Well, I think it has to be prioritized, honestly. Like, it is very much doable. Like, the technology exists, the companies are interested, there are municipal and federal partners that are interested in this. It just needs some political willingness to say, okay, we're going to cover or support the partnership for that last mile, right? Because if a business decides, oh, look, there's only 800 people, it's not me worth extending the infrastructure to provide that coverage, well, that's an opportunity for the government to say, okay, I think New Brunswick should be the place that could tell anybody, you come here and any corner of our province except maybe the top of Mount Carlton or who knows what, you can get high-speed internet here. So bring your digital job, or pick your rural life and know that you can get access to educational services, healthcare services, government services through the internet. Like, it's really just a modernization that I think most New Brunswickers are very ready for, and our government has just been slow to sort of adopt or support that kind of technology approach.
Before the cameras were rolling today, you said New Brunswick used to be a digital leader. I'd love you to expand on that, especially with your own background in tech.
Yeah. It was the NBTEL days, I think, that were this heyday of when New Brunswick was one of the first places to start to build out an information highway and the kind of technological infrastructure that supported call centers being created. NBTEL was known as one of the most innovative telecommunications companies going. There's a lot of great people who were there then that have gone out to build really interesting businesses that help drive our economy. And then I think we took our eye off the ball. I mean, I spent time in government where we were pushing a digital ID project, this notion that every New Brunswicker would have a digital identification and way to connect to government services. We took that project sort of as far as we could before there was a different thing that they decided they wanted to put money toward, even though I think we need to make those changes, right? And I do have a bias, I guess. I was a kid whose my mom was a computer programmer and taught my sister and I how to code in BASIC on a Commodore 64. But I think people assume or think that just because we live maybe rurally or we have a community of seniors that we're not connected or on the internet, and that's not true. Like, there are more seniors on Facebook in New Brunswick than I think any other province in Canada. I'll have to check that stat, but we have a population that is prepared to use technology, that knows how, and we just need government to keep up with the public on this. And I would love to see us really get back to some of our roots of being digital innovators and advancing this notion of digital government and a modern technology infrastructure to better serve any New Brunswicker anywhere.
The power of the digital era allows us to be more transparent. And I know that's something you've called for in government, being more open with data. Can you expand on what you meant by that and how you would be a different government?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of mistrust for good reason, right? People don't see how decisions are being made. We're not seeing the information that supports why a particular French immersion program might have been chosen or what's going on with how nursing homes are allocated. And without that trust, we need the relationship between New Brunswickers and their government to be healthy. I think the onus is on politicians to change, and I think that means radical transparency. So how do we make data available? There's a whole movement around open government, and some of it is a lot simpler than it sounds. You make the data available. You actually publish, right? Here's the data that we have on decisions we're considering. Here's the 3 choices we looked at, and here's the one we picked, and here's why. And you don't make it so that people have to do a right to information request and file and beg. You make it open by default. And so if we can put that information out there, then we can rebuild some of the trust that people have lost. That needs a technological infrastructure, right? We need a modern government that knows how to run on technology to put that information into New Brunswickers' fingertips so that they know what's going on with their kids' education or their own health or their government's decision making.
I know one of the ways that you are building trust is doing things like Facebook Live videos with your audience. So anyone who's not following you and wants to get to know you, that's a great way. Why is that so important to you to make those connections, be it going to the communities or doing it online?
Yeah, for me, it's the best way to learn. I want to know what people care about. I want to know what questions they have. It is some of that, like open data also means open and accessible politicians. So not everybody is going to come out to a town hall meeting, right? People want different ways to connect. And so, yeah, for me, it's part of that idea of transparency and authenticity. If I just go on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and live stream for an hour and a half and say anybody can come and ask me any question, so that I can better understand what do they care about and what do they want to hear, and maybe they can better get to know me so that we can try to build a trust that doesn't currently exist between New Brunswickers and politicians. So,
is it at times, I say this as a journalist too, overwhelming when we're looking at a world that's increasingly polarized? I think we see it more in the United States, but I know I see it even here in New Brunswick when there's a post online that might have 2 very different opinions. How are you navigating that as a politician? Yeah,
you know what? Shout out to New Brunswickers. I haven't personally received a lot of hate or that kind of thing that I honestly, I guess I was expecting. I kind of thought, I'm going to get this job. We prepared my husband and kids that look, our house is probably going to get egged. There's going to be some negativity coming our way. And I'm really grateful that hasn't been the case. But I think that polarization, right? You look at comment boards, you look at places where people have anonymity and the language they're using. A lot of it's really ugly. So I think some of the stuff like that openness, that accessibility, whether it's a Facebook Live Q&A, whether it's government making data available, I actually think that can help with the polarization. Is you and me are real people and we're talking, and if somebody who believes a different way wants to come and sit down and talk to us and wants to yell and tell us we're wrong, I want to hear that and understand where it's coming from. And I hope that people will feel that it's that understanding of different perspectives and the ability to listen and talk it out that will help us build a better government, right? Right now, people do not feel connected. They don't think their vote matters. They think all of us are up there operating off a script, and there's somebody like Wizard of Oz behind the curtain that's pulling all the levers. And so maybe that was the case, but it isn't anymore for me and for our party. And we want to make that visible to folks and ask them to come and join us, right? If you want something different from politics, come with me and be a different kind of politician. And that'll help us change the polarization and the mistrust that's out there.
Now, I'm going to pivot really ungracefully to a controversial, polarizing topic, which is French immersion reform that's scheduled to take place next fall in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on that, and what should really be done?
Yeah, this one came out of left field, honestly. Like, I remember back in September, we were asking the Department of Education to talk to us about COVID catch-up plans, to talk to us about the resource shortages we were seeing in schools because teachers were choosing to leave the profession, and we're really concerned about the state of the education system based on capacity to serve kids. And then all of a sudden in December, we hear, oh, no, we're throwing out French immersion and we're putting in place this new model that at the time they announced it, there was not a piece of information about the new model, but that it was going to be in place in September. And if you had a kid in kindergarten, you could not register your kid for French immersion. So we were really concerned right off the bat because it came out of nowhere. It wasn't in a platform. It wasn't in a budget. New Brunswickers didn't have a say in this. And as we tried to unpack it, we learned that teachers didn't have a say, and experts didn't have a say, and parents didn't have a say. And so the way that the government has gone about this is, well, it's like we just talked about, right? It doesn't build trust. There wasn't data shared. There was no transparency around, like, where did this come from? We had deputies being fired. So we've been listening to New Brunswickers, talking to teachers, talking to experts, receiving a lot of people reaching out to us to tell us their personal experience and perspective. And I think it boils down to a couple different things, right? People everywhere want access to equity in education, right? Is it fair that someone in Fredericton gets French immersion, but somebody in Campobello doesn't? So that was a problem they were trying to solve. But then we also have classrooms full of a whole bunch of different kinds of learners, newcomers who don't speak English or French, that teachers are looking to support and teach. Kids that are coming with more mental health problems than we've seen in ages, kids that are coming to school hungry. The school system, and because the streaming problem, this is going to be a long answer, I realize, Vicki, I'm totally rambling. But many folks weren't choosing French immersion if their kids had exceptional needs, and so they talk about classroom composition and streaming and the effects of that on the English prime system. I think the Premier called it a ghetto, which was an unfortunate choice of words. But the point was kind of there, that but getting rid of French immersion doesn't change the fact that there are kids that need resources and teachers that need resources to support equitable education for everybody. And a one-size-fits-no-one program that we're starting to learn of, this 50-50 French that supposedly was done in Bathurst, but not exactly, and that we don't have any data to show how it will work out. Everyone has resisted it, right? The experts have said it's not the way to go. Teachers have said it's not the way to go, and certainly the timing of driving that change this September onto a school system that does not have the resources to operate their current curriculum with unknown curriculum, and there's just so much chaos. I see the stress on teachers and on parents about, like, what the heck's my kid gonna be learning next year, and do I get a say in that? Do I get to choose? There's so many problems with it, and it seems, how can I make this more positive? Well, the good news is people have come out and expressed themselves, and there was a bit of hope yesterday when the Premier said it's not final. So I want to applaud that. Like, you might have been stuck in a decision yesterday, but if you're realizing now, too late arguably, but maybe not too late, that this is not the right way to go because you have listened to New Brunswickers, then I want to reward and support that. It isn't. The timing is wrong and the program is wrong, and it's been really moving to hear New Brunswickers come out and really express what they want to see from their education system. I think it's actually a neat opportunity for us to take all of this amazing feedback, because it's gone beyond French immersion. Like, people have come forward to say, I have a child who's deaf and this is their reality in school, and how are we supporting that? And other people have come forward to express lots of ideas about how we could make our education system better. So I'm hoping we can capture all of that and take our focus away from fiddling with French immersion, and to how do we respond to all of these teachers and experts and people who are telling us how to make the education system better by resourcing it so that every kid has a pathway, and that one size fits no one programming is not the way forward.
And the thing that rivals the education system in terms of what New Brunswickers care about is our healthcare system. What would be your approach to improving where we're at right now, especially post-COVID-19, where there seems to be still so much stress on the system?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we started this off talking about the fact that that's the number one thing I hear about, no matter where I go. People, I think the concerns can be, if I try to really simplify them, like, I don't have access to a family doctor. I'm scared my emergency room is either closed or has a crazy long wait list and is not a healthy place for me to be. And then you go from there into, people's concerns about access to care. So I think that there's a couple, we've made a couple proposals actually. It wasn't too long after I took the leadership that the team and I pushed out 6 ideas on healthcare that we thought the government could adopt right away. Some of them focused around recruitment and how to really guarantee jobs to everybody who's studying in a nursing program in New Brunswick right now, and look at how we're recruiting and really flip the script on recruitment. The recruitment in the past had been very focused on what we need as a government, as opposed to what healthcare professionals need as a potential employee, and we were trying to make them fit into us rather than trying to make us fit into them, right? Someone says, I want to practice in Sussex this way, and instead we tell them, no, we want you to practice in St. John that way. It's like, you have somebody who wants to practice in Sussex, take them, right? Like, make that work. But really the thing that I think could be the most meaningful change is one that's already been started, just with tiny little baby steps. These idea of, we call them collaborative care models, multidisciplinary, team-based care away from the hospital, where you would have physicians, nurse practitioners, nutritionists, physiotherapists, pharmacists, a mix of healthcare professionals relevant to that community, delivering community care over an expanded amount of hours within a public infrastructure model. So it's still single payer to the government, and whether that physician is fee for service or whether they're an employee, that stuff you work out. And then you add in the technology, so the electronic healthcare record that's unified across the province. They piloted the first collaborative care model when I was at the Chamber of Commerce in Fredericton, and we had been advocating for collaborative care then, and they piloted the first one at the Gibson Clinic. Since then, I think we've opened up a handful more, and the budget, or the speech from the throne the government put out this year, said that they would try to build 4 more. And we think that just is not enough, right? Like, this is the right way to go. We should be running to go there, not just baby stepping, because we could be taking pressure off ERs and giving more people access to care if we really accelerated the development of community care centers in every community in New Brunswick, especially at a time when we have the means to, right? The federal government's about to contribute more to healthcare. We have a $777 million surplus. We have the opportunity to kind of leapfrog and change our care model to something that would give people access to primary care, that would take pressure off the emergency rooms, the 2 things they care the most about. So my question right now is, our party agrees, other parties agree, the government agrees that this is the way to go. Why aren't we doing it full steam, right? Mm-hmm. Why are we just trying to open maybe 4 this year when we could be completely reforming our access to healthcare with a real commitment to that kind of model?
And finally, a seat in the legislature. We're waiting for a by-election to be called. Can you tell us where you will be seeking a seat and what's next for you? Yeah,
I have decided to seek the nomination and the seat in Bathurst Est Nipisiguit Saint Isidore, which is a riding up between Bathurst and the Acadian Peninsula. And there's also a by-election happening in Dieppe and in Restigouche-Chaleur. So we are actually, if I can make a plug, we just announced the date of our Dieppe nomination, so that'll be February 25th. We'll announce the date of the Restigouche-Chaleur nomination soon in March, and then the one in Bathurst right afterwards. So we're looking for candidates who are interested. Like we just talked about, if they want politics to change, then I would say come and be the change, right? We want to do it differently, and you believe in the idea of transparency and getting much more connected in community and delivering that kind of representation. And I am looking forward to running in Bathurst. The Premier said yesterday that they will announce the date likely at the end of March, and that they will happen before the summer. So we take that to mean in the April-May timeframe. We would love for them to provide a specific date, because anybody thinking about maybe getting into politics, timing matters. It puts a burden on your job, on your family, on your life. And so it would really help us to provide that certainty to folks to say, if you're interested in doing this, this is when a campaign would happen. But right now we think it's April, May, based on what the Premier said yesterday.
Now, I know we have viewers from across New Brunswick, but you're here in Charlotte County today, which is our focus. Where have you been visiting, and where can people likely see you in the future?
Well, I am trying to be everywhere. So you mentioned Campobello. I'm here in St. Andrews today. I'm going to be back in St. Stephen area on February 16th. I have been, in Sussex, in Baldoon, in Carleton County, in Woodstock, and all around Moncton and Fredericton, certainly, and places like the Miramichi. So right now I'm working through our grassroots organizations. We have riding associations in all those communities. So the team in St. George, I was there not too long ago because they were putting on a great roast beef dinner. So I love, though, hearing from folks. I just got a message today from somebody saying, I live in a community outside of outside of Negowack, Alnwick. I don't even know how to pronounce it now that I say that. Alynwick. Reached out and said, we'd love you to come and see us. We want to talk to you. And I was like, okay, thanks. We'll schedule it in and get there. So if there is anybody that says, like, come to my corner, right? We want to see you in Millville or in Milledgeville or in Marysville, or let me know, because I'm loving getting to see New Brunswick as it really is in community, and going to where people are to learn from them and hear from them.
Well, thanks for making the time to come to our corner today. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vicki. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
My guest today has been Susan Holt, leader of the New Brunswick Liberal Party. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thanks for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.